This is going to be interesting because, like I said, creating a new identity is something that I think everybody should do. There should be certain seasons in life where you adopt a new identity, where you choose to do things differently. And if you're a person that isn't doing this every so often, I truly think that you're running in place. Quite frankly, I don't think there's any other way to put it. Right? You're not doing enough. You're not creating enough change. You're not adapting to new circumstances. Right? So I do believe that so there's certain times of the year where you're going to need to change, whether it's your routine, whether it's your work pattern, whether it's certain habits. Right? There's going to be some changes that are needed. You cannot stay unless you have a perfect schedule, perfect habits, do everything you need to do all the time, like nobody does, right? Um, I would say, like I said, change and have seasons. Even if you're doing everything you're supposed to do, make sure you have different habits that you do every so often. Like let's just say for a month you do a certain habit, or for like a 6 month period you do a certain habit, and then you stop doing it, right? So that's something I would recommend for anybody to do, is just to be a seasonal version of yourself. That's the way I would describe it, right? Be a seasonal version of yourself. Um, but yeah, so with creating an identity, right? What a lot of it comes down to, and the foundation that it comes down to, is the habits that you choose to uphold, right? And every time you choose a good habit, you're pretty much giving a vote to that certain identity. And every single time you choose a negative habit or something that's not going to serve you, you're upholding that identity as well, right? You're upholding a negative identity. And this is a concept that I got from this book called Atomic Habits, which is something that I would definitely recommend anybody watching this to go ahead and read. It is a very, very digestible book, very, very practical, and it talks about building habits and breaking your old bad habits. So it talks about you need to start at the core, which is going to be your identity. What do you associate with your identity, right? What are the negative things specifically that you associate with your identity, if at any at all? Which, if you're watching this, you know my opinion on upholding a negative identity, right? This is something that I would never recommend to anybody, right? There's going to be certain negative perspectives that you have on yourself, negative paradigms that you see the world through, right? And I do believe that it is your responsibility to go ahead and change those for yourself, right? You should never associate with negativity, and you need to learn how to disassociate yourself from negative paradigms or negative identity, right? So let's just say somebody says, shout out to grandma. My grandma did this recently, and I was very, very proud of her for doing that. My grandma said, she was notorious in my family for being late, to the point where people made inside jokes about it. So she made it a point to say, "Hey, I want to create a new identity and be on time more, right?" And she has been on time a lot more. And with that specifically said, like, even when people were to say something negative about her, I would go out of my way to correct them and saying that's not her anymore, right? And you need to have those people that are willing to uphold that identity with you as well, which I think just goes down to pretty much who you have around you, right? And you need to have the right circle around you. You need to have supportive people who are going to push you towards your better self and will encourage that positive behavior. So that is the way I would like to start off the podcast. Like I said, if you're in here, I appreciate you for stopping by. Make sure to leave a comment just like he's in here, and I hope that you guys leave some comments just so we can have some more of an interesting conversation. Um, yeah, and it's just something that I've seen. I've seen too often. That's the reason why I have to tell you guys to disassociate from negative identities, is because I see so many people talking bad about themselves, right? All the time. I see this. I see people talking bad about who they are, and I'm just like, why would you ever say anything negative about yourself? Not to say that there aren't negative aspects about you, right? So when I say don't talk about these things or learn to disassociate yourself from these things, I'm talking about corrective behavior. I'm talking about change the way you speak. I'm talking about change the way you act, right? I'm not saying don't acknowledge your insufficiencies. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you're by yourself, and think about these things thoroughly, and once you think about these things thoroughly, you need to create a plan of action for yourself, where you say, hey, this is something that I like that I'm doing, and this is something that I don't like that I'm doing. And you need to be able to, like I said, go ahead and correct your behavior, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for your potential, right? You are responsible for reaching your maximum potential. And if you're not able to reach your maximum potential, quite frankly, you're living a life less than what you should be living, quite frankly, in my opinion, right? I do believe everyone should be living up, or at least trying to live up to their potential. Anyone that is, not refusing to, uphold the identity of, their best potential, I do believe that they're holding everyone around them back unconsciously, right? They think that they're just harming themselves, when in reality, you are harming the ones around you unconsciously. You're unconsciously not allowing them to live the best life that they possibly can. You're not allowing them to, surround themselves with truly the best people, the best quality of people, right? And this is why I take these things very, very seriously because, quite frankly, I realize the impact. Even if you don't even know that many people, right? If you have a few people around you, right, you need to recognize the impact that people around you have, as especially with the environment that you choose to stay around as well. So, like I said, don't associate with negativity. That's something that you should never do. Stay away from it as much as possible. And if you do come across you saying something negative about yourself, or if you do come across yourself, choosing a negative behavior, choosing a negative identity to uphold, right? I want you to be more conscious in the moment when you choose to do those things, right? Say, hey, at the very least, you need to at least have the thought impulse pop into your mind, right? Saying, hey, I know right now that this is not going to serve me. This is a bad habit. This is a bad identity that I'm upholding. Now, right? If you choose to go ahead and go forth with it, that's on you, right? But at least you acknowledge the fact that that's not the right thing you should be doing, right? And the first part about, trying to go about a problem is first acknowledging that a problem does exist, right? So you acknowledge the problem exists, that's okay, right? The next step is trying to implement better solutions to avoid, coming across those certain identities or certain habits that you have, right? That is going to be the next step. And eventually, over time, if you kick yourself in the ass for choosing a negative identity, eventually you're going to, have that corrective behavior. That just I hope that's what I hope at least, right? And I would even say that for myself, right? I'm a person who strategically lives life, right? And there's certain moments in time where I'm like, hey, maybe I'm choosing a habit that isn't the best. But what I will say though is just me acknowledging that is still going to put me ahead of everybody else at my age, quite frankly, right? Because I'm choosing to at least recognize and not be so naive to the fact that I know that I'm doing something I know I probably shouldn't be doing, right? And everybody, I don't care what you say, everybody does something they know they probably shouldn't be doing. That is human nature in itself, right? But it's more about acknowledging it and then eventually over time correcting that behavior, right? Now, no one's perfect. Like I said, you're going to have your flaws, and that is okay, right? You should strive for the best version of yourself that you possibly can. Like I said, strive for your best potential. But at the end of the day, you need to realize that you need to at least acknowledge your insufficiencies. You need to acknowledge them. That's just a must for sure. Now, give me 1 second, fellas. Like I said, if you like what I'm talking about, man, make sure you leave in the comments. Like I said, leave a like. If you're rewatching this, make sure you go and leave a like as well. All right. Another thing that I want to mention is this right here. This is something that I would recommend for everyone to do watching this for sure, right? I would create a heaven and hell scenario for the identity or your potential identity, right? So let's just say right now you let all the bad habits, all the bad vices take over you right now. Okay, where would your life trajectory go? It would obviously be going down, right? You'd pick up on all the bad things. You'd treat people a certain way that isn't, exactly positive. And just try to cultivate all these thoughts surrounding what you could potentially do if you fell into temptation, fell into lust, fell into all of these negative behaviors and negative habits, right? What type of person would you be? And then at the same time, by making that, it's going to make it a lot easier to realize what you value and more importantly, what you would be if you were to reach your potential. The heaven and hell scenario is definitely going to be implemented here, right? So for the heaven aspect, or looking at your highest potential that you could possibly achieve, what does that person do? Be very, very clear what that person does, right? Let's just say you're going to the gym once a week, right? Maybe that person is going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, 6 times a week, right? Like me. But you need to be very, very clear with what specifically you're striving for. And a lot of people do not know what they're striving for. A lot of people don't know who they want to be, right? And the way that I would try to give you the best advice that I possibly could give you is recognize other people in their greatness, right? Recognize people in their own weakness themselves, right? And say, hey, I don't want to be like this person, and I specifically do want to be like this person. There's certain things about this person that I want to be like, and there's certain things about this person that I would like to stay away from, right? So the second you start making those decisions, those conscious efforts, right? The second you start making those conscious decisions and efforts, you're going to begin to, like I said, be very, very clear with what you would like and what you would like, right? So you need to be very, very clear of that for sure. And from there, you can now cultivate a more solid identity.